Hey guys, today we're going to talk about a couple of mystery Lugers. Other people will call them fantasy Lugers, but whatever you call them, I think you're going to learn something today. Now, before we get started, most of you have heard about product placement ads, and so I very serendipitously put over here a product placement. Just because today I wore the shirt. Check this out. There you go. Today I came to work in my brand new Otto's Distillery t-shirt, and so I thought I'd put some product behind me because I'm very proud of the fact that my favorite son-in-law started a distillery in Philadelphia, the only rum distillery. He has many flavors of rum, and one of my favorites is the vodka. Now, you can check them out if you like. He doesn't pay anything for that because I do it for the family. Let's talk about some Lugers. Okay, my first fantasy gun that I'm going to talk about is the 1904 Luger. It's a Navy style Luger, and I'll show you what I mean. 1904, very, very rare Luger, and I'm going to have you come check this out because this just came in. I actually sent it to Dave Mulchin, who is the author of this book on Navy Lugers. I sent it to him for examination, and he took some pictures and gave me his thoughts, but the opinions expressed on this video are totally my opinions. Come check them out. Okay, so this is the Luger in question. This is the style of this Luger is a 1904. It's very distinct in several ways. First of all, here's a 1906 Luger. I had to think for a minute. The 1906 and the 1904 have the grip safety. And then starting with the 1908 Navy, that is no longer there. I'm presenting various levels of knowledge. I'm going to assume some of you don't know anything about Navy Lugers and some of you know a lot. So we're going to take a forensic look at this Luger because if it's a 1904, it would be worth a lot of money, but there's no Navy marking on it. Notice this right here, Navy marking. That's the Crown M marking, and with this, there's no Navy marking. Navy marking on the barrel, no Navy marking. So when I first got the gun and he said it's a 1904 style Navy, I thought, okay, so this is a fake Navy. But technically, think about it, this can't be a fake Navy because there's no Navy marking. It can be a fake Luger, but it actually is a Luger. It can't be a fake Navy because there's no Navy marking, but it has the characteristics of a 1904 Navy. Let's take a closer look. Okay, let's back up a bit on your knowledge base. Let me assume that you're just getting started at this. I get so many emails from you guys saying, I'm just getting started, I love it, I'm learning so much, and I want to buy my first Luger. I can't tell you how many people a week tell me, I'm ready to buy my first Luger. So that's exciting for me and for us Luger collectors out there because we want somebody to sell our Lugers to someday. So having new collectors come in is great. So here's the broad brush. You'll notice the Navy Luger or the Navy style. Why don't I do this? It'll make more sense. This is a 1906 Navy Luger. And this is a standard Luger that most of you are used to. This is very rare and quite expensive, can be easily $6,000. Standard Lugers are going for at least $1,000. Most of them are in the $2,500 range. So first and foremost, you have the 4-inch barrel versus the 6-inch barrel. That's real obvious. So that tells me this is a Navy because of the 6-inch. Now keep in mind the artillery, here's a picture of the artillery, that has an 8-inch barrel. So going back to this is a Navy. It's early because it has the grip safety. They did that in 1900, 1902 models, 1904 models, and then up to 1906 they did the grip safety. The other thing that is distinct is look at the rear sight. Look here, you see it's a fixed, very simple sight. Front sight and back sight are fixed. But on the Navy, you can see it's a little more complicated, and that's because it's adjustable. We've got 100 meters to 200 meters. This is DWM, which is the largest makers of Lugers before World War II. And this is a code for Mauser, which is the largest Luger maker during World War II. So broad brush would be World War I era, DWM, World War II era will usually have a Mauser code or the word Mauser on it. Okay, and then one last thing I want you to look at. This is a very, look at the style of writing. It's a very, I'm going to say Gothic or very formal style of writing of the safety. And here you see just a straight up and down. I guess that would be the font. You know, they have, when you're typing on your computer, you can pick an older font, and then this is a more modern font. So this is most Lugers. This is a very early Luger, and so you can see the style of font. Now, the reason I give you that broad brush overview is because this gun came in actually a couple weeks ago. You can see it has the early style font. It does have the grip safety. You also notice, I didn't mention, it has a Navy magazine. That's concentric circles. This is what you're used to seeing. This is an aluminum bottom. Navy has concentric circles. This one will have a Navy marking, hard to see. Navy marking, and it is numbered. This has no Navy marking. So again, it's a Navy style magazine, but there's no Navy marking, so you can't say it's a fake Navy. This, I already mentioned, has the Navy Crown M, and this has no Navy markings at all. But also look at the barrel. This is very distinct. The barrel is fat. By the way, the serial number on this is 994. It's on the barrel and on the frame, and then also on the parts under here, other places where you normally would see the numbering. It's matching number 994. And it has a distinct fat barrel that I have only seen. I've actually only seen pictures of 1904 Navies. They're very, very rare. We're going to take a look at some in a book. But it has the fat barrel, and so that right away stands out. The other thing it has is it has an unusual rear toggle link that is unique to the 1904. Actually, 1900 guns up to 1904. That is a unique rear toggle link. Now, let's take a look at the book. Okay, so when this came in, I thought first and foremost, I need to know what I'm talking about, because I knew it looked like a 1904, yet there was no Navy marking, so I had to say, what the heck is it? And so I go to this book, which 1904 Navy. This is a book about 1904 to 1940, written by Dave Mulchin, and we've been selling this book. There's the first page of the book. You see serial number 33. That is the 1904 Navy that he owns. And then Dave has pictures of his gun. Actually, there's two of them, serial number 33 and 51. That's how rare these are. He has two examples here that he shows in the book. And you can see the toggle link here. You can see Navy markings. And what I did, this is number 33. You can see the rear toggle link, and especially here, he highlights the fatter barrel. Notice the normal barrel, this is the fatter barrel. So I actually sent him this gun, and he was kind enough to take it all apart and compare his number 33 to my number 994 to kind of compare and contrast. We're going to take a look at that. But before I do, let's look at rarity. All right, so this is the page where he actually spends at least half the book going through known serial numbers. And also, the ones in red are suspect. There's something definitely wrong with them. So it just means, red means watch out, and then you can read what's wrong with them. But it starts with, the first real one is number 15. And you can see there's not very many, but these are known 1904 Navies. And now a quick flip of the page, remember, it goes from 15, and the last one that is known correct is 144. So there was only probably a little more than 100 made, and there's only about 20 of them known. So that shows how rare it is. Now, what are they worth? People don't like it when I quote prices because you may not be able to find one for anywhere near this, but I think the last one I saw for sale was around $100,000. So that makes this gun quite exciting if it's real. But we already know it's not Navy marked. So then, by the way, if we look at the serial numbers, because I looked for 994 and it's not on here, but you do see, I'm going to say put together, some parts faked, different things done. They're not all like 100% fakes, but sometimes there'll be parts of a 1904 that somebody then put together to make it look like a real 1904. So these ones are questionable, and you can see the serial number goes all the way up to 2800. But it doesn't really matter. If they're not right, you can't really count them, and so the serial range is basically from 1 to 144. Let's take a look at the comparison of number 33 with this gun. So with Dave's help, I was able to compare Navy Luger, which is known to be real, number 33 versus the one that I just got in. Now, obviously, I wasn't excited about him mailing me such an expensive gun, so I sent him my gun, and he graciously took it apart. And by the way, these opinions are my opinions. All he did was take the pictures as I requested. So the first picture I want to show you, I'm going to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly. The first is the good. If we look at the barrel, other than a Navy marking on the barrel actually looks really good. Now you take the barrel off, or you take the top off of the frame, and you can see the witness mark. It's called the witness mark because somebody long ago called it the witness mark. And basically it means when they screwed the barrel in, they marked it so that these two lines line up. You see on number 33, the two lines line up. And that's because if somebody swaps the barrel, if you want to know was the barrel swapped, the witness lines, if it's swapped or changed or altered in any way, they won't line up anymore. And so that's just one indication. And if you look at number 994, the witness lines also line up. I don't know that I would call it perfect, but it certainly looks good enough to me, and therefore I would call this the good. Now, let's look at the bad. The next I want to look at is the toggle link comparison. So here's the toggle link number 33 and then toggle link 994. They're obviously different. Now, one comment that I heard and I observed myself is the toggle link on 994 looks more like a Swiss, an early Swiss toggle link. So that's food for thought. Also, in terms of not really ugly, but I'm not sure if it's good or bad. If we look at the lettering on the word safety, you can see that they both are the older ones. But when you flip the safety lever, you can see that the white area is very different in these two guns. Now let's take a look at the proof marks, what they should look like, because they are distinct for the 1904. If we take a look at the left side of the receiver, we can see a close-up of the proofs, and that is unique to the 1904 Navy. But on the number 994, there is no proof mark, Navy proof mark, or any proof mark. And then also look at the back of the Luger. There's only on the 1904, there is a proof mark on the back of the Luger, and of course 994 has no proof mark at all. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the ugly. And going back to the toggle pin, the rear toggle link. When we looked at the two, here's actually a close-up of the bottom. If we look at the bottom, we can see that the number 33, it fits like a glove, and if it fits, you must acquit. But if you notice the top one, number 33, it fits perfectly. The bottom one, which is 994, it actually looks like somebody hammered it in. And so that's pretty ugly machining. If it was done, if it was done in the factory, something about this looks not quite right, like it was added later or hammered in later. And then one other ugly fact I don't have a picture of is number 994 has a World War II era fluted firing pin. And when I take the gun apart, I'll just show you it's fluted. It can't be from World War I. It has to be from World War II era. And of course, the 1904 should have a non-fluted firing pin. Now, some of that means almost nothing to some of you guys other than, wow, there's a lot to learn. Don't be scared off. It's a lot easier to collect when you have somebody who is more expert than you and can help guide you through it. I had people in my life that guided me through this stuff, and I still make mistakes, but it's worthwhile. It's worthwhile learning and collecting, and I always regret the guns I didn't buy, not the guns I bought. I bought some bad guns, but I always was able to get out of it by being honest and moving them along. But I do regret some of the guns that I didn't buy, and I wish I had. Okay, I'm just going to take a close look at this gun. I'm going to show you the 2 firing pins, and then I'm going to make an assessment on what I think this gun is. Okay, it comes in 9mm. It has the fat barrel, which is unique. It has early writing here, and it has the grip safety. It has a Navy style, no question, Navy style magazine with no marking on it. There's no other proof marks, and all it has is serial numbers. Under here, here, and here. There's the front strap, beautiful. There's the back strap, beautiful. There is number 94 right here. It does have the unique Navy style rear sight. And I am going to take both guns apart just so you can see the firing pin. Okay, I took the 2 guns apart, both 9mm. Again, you can see the fat barrel. Also, the finish on this is duller. This is a brighter finish. This is duller. Not sure what to make of that. This is what I was talking about, the firing pin. See the fluted fire pin? That was to help gases escape. This is non-fluted, and this is fluted. This is World War II era. This is World War I, which it should be. So we know at least this was swapped out, and there are no markings. There's no serial number, no markings at all on that. And then these are the 2 toggles, the 1906 Navy, and you see DWM, and here you can see the unique rear toggle link. Now, what is my opinion on this? So it's easy, and a lot of collectors who think they know a lot will immediately say, it's totally a fake, man. Don't be stupid. And by the way, that's fine. Don't buy it. I'm not recommending anybody buy this gun. It's just a nice study. But here's my thought about it's totally fake. So anybody who had the machining expertise and the ability to make these parts, make this barrel, which is fantastic, make all these parts, make this toggle link, make it all work correctly, and mechanically it's great. If they could make all that, why wouldn't they go ahead and put the stamps on it? The stamps are actually not that hard to find. I know of several people who have fake navies, and the stamps have been around. In fact, you see them on eBay every once in a while. Now, they're not really good stamps, but really good stamps do exist out there. And so if you go to all this trouble to make a mystery gun that has never been documented and nobody knows what it is, and it has no proof marks on it, why wouldn't you get the stamps and proof mark it and you have a $100,000 gun? That's my question. So it makes no sense that somebody deliberately tried to fake a gun. The only thing that makes sense to me is at the end of production, there were leftover parts. We know DWM did not go out of business, but they decided to focus on other things and stop making Lugers. So they sent all of their leftover parts to Mauser, and then Mauser produced them up till 1942, and people were still putting guns together even after 1942. So my conclusion, and it's only my conclusion, is that this is a gun made up from leftover parts. That at the end of production of the 1904, they only made a little over 100. We'll say they made about 150 of them. They must have had a leftover barrel. Somebody had a leftover part. Here's a leftover part. I'm thinking that they made a fantasy 1904, not Navy, but they made a fantasy 1904 from leftover parts. That's my conclusion anyway. And by the way, the stamp, I don't see halos there, which is fine for it to be refinished. Or the barrel was blued with a later bluing. But these serial numbers do look correct for the Luger factory, whether it was DWM or Mauser. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Made from leftover parts. If you have, I'd love to hear from you. Again, respectful comments. I love it. It's a little bit of forensics here, maybe too deep in the woods for some of you. But I had fun tracking all this down. And thank you to Dave and some of the other forum members that helped in this discussion. When I think about fantasy guns, I can't help but remember, I think when we first did videos, maybe 3 years ago, we had a Navy Luger with a V2 rocket on the top. Yep, here it is. I still remember that one, and sometimes I regret selling it. I've never seen another one, and I ask people if you've ever seen one. It's possible that they took World War I guns and they went to guards in Piemonte. but probably not. It's probably a total fantasy gun. I can't say either way. I know it's not one in the books, and since we did this video, no one has told me they found another one. Okay, the next mystery gun I'm going to show you is going to be much more of a slam dunk, meaning I'm sure this gun has been faked. And it's because we're going to take a look at, this came in the same time as the 1904 Navy style. This came in a 1939 Krieghoff. Now we did a video which gives you an overview of the Krieghoff, and I showed every year of manufacture from 1936 all the way to 1945, with 1945 being questionable. But the one thing I did say in that video is I believe there's no such thing as a 1939 Krieghoff. So, of course, this week I got one in. So I have to start off with, it can't be right. And so I'm going to show you the process that I went through to decide that this, in fact, is not right. So the first comparison I will do, so here was my thought. First of all, I thought this finish looked too dull. And so I said, okay, that looks like it's not the right finish. And that 1939, I'll bet this is a 1939 Mauser, and somebody just put a Krieghoff toggle on it. Now, I have had Krieghoff toggles. I just happened to pull this out because I've had this for years. What am I doing with a Krieghoff toggle? Well, from time to time, gun stores go out of business, gunsmiths go out of business, and they often will have just bins full of parts. And whenever that happens, I buy all the Luger and all the parts that I can get because we often fix guns for people. And so over the years, I've probably sold 3 Krieghoff toggles, and I still have this one. And again, I've probably had this for years, and it's just waiting for someday when it's needed. Somebody needs a toggle, or they break a link, and yes, I do see this, sometimes these do break or they need one. And this one has the Waffen stamps, and it's number 16. So if you need Krieghoff toggle number 16, I have it. And these toggles do go for a lot of money. Without the extra parts, it's probably $800–900, but a full toggle train is easily $1,500. So I'm thinking this is a Mauser 1934, and somebody just put a Krieghoff toggle on it, and that would be wrong because I went and got a 1939, and while this one does not have the white wax in it, you can see right away, notice the 9 and the 3 have the little curlies on the end. I'm going to call it a little curly Q on the end. Also, the top of the 3 is flat. Here, the font, first of all, is a little bit smaller. There's no curly Qs on the end, and the top is rounded. So, it is not a Mauser. Well, that is not a Mauser top. Here's the 1938, which I know is correct, and it highlights the fact that the finish is very different. And also I see the little curly Qs on the 9 and the 3, so I think, okay, that did not solve my mystery. The Krieghoff toggle is probably a Krieghoff toggle. And here you can see the proof marks on the 38 and 39. I mean, there's nothing that stands out as being a problem. When you look at the serial 9991, the font is definitely larger. And here, the serial number is definitely larger. Barrel, the serial number is very tiny, and I'm not going to comment on that because I can't even really see it, but I suspect that has been made up. This was restamped. And one other thing I wanted to point out, so this has been renumbered, this has been renumbered, probably this has been renumbered. One other thing I wanted to point out is on the stock lug. On a Mauser frame, they often, here's a Mauser frame, they often will have a Mauser hump. I actually mentioned that in my book on Third Reich Lugers. You can see this hump, that's a distinct Mauser hump. And now not all Mauser frames had the hump. This one does not. This one does not have a hump. So I'm thinking, okay, that's fine. But what's not fine is this little tiny, I'm going to call it a dimple, at the top of this cutout. Now this is ground out, and it looks like they go in with a router. They make like a little dimple. I don't know if that helps or not. And then they cut down. And let's look at the other side. That dimple is a little more pronounced. See the dimple at the top? Krieghoff, when they manufacture them, do not have that dimple. So generally a DWM and a Krieghoff will not have the dimple. Mauser frames do have the dimple. Now here's the 38 Krieghoff. No dimple. No dimple. So my conclusion, 100% sure, this is a Mauser frame, renumbered frame. Somebody had to have numbered the 1939. They did a very good job. The 1939 is very well done. It does look a lot like a Krieghoff marking, but it has to be renumbered. And this toggle could be real because the finish, if you look at the finish here versus the finish here, this is a lot duller and this is much shinier. So this is a fantasy gun, mystery gun, but the mystery is solved. It's been faked. Oh, one other thing is the magazine. Magazine is not even close. It has a 2 on the top, which that's actually a police style. Krieghoff never put the 2 or the 1 up there. The Krieghoff stamp down here is actually in the wrong place and it's a bad stamp. It should be upside down at the top. And then if you look at the fonts, once again, the font is too large. It's up and down. Here it's straight across, smaller font. So the font on the magazine is faked, and this is a Mauser frame. And maybe the only thing on here that is correct is the Krieghoff toggle. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something today, and I hope that wasn't too far into the weeds. I kind of like that, solving that mystery. And as I already said, I hope you learned something today. If you're interested in the book, it is available on our website. We'd be glad to send you, actually, we'd be glad to sell you a copy.